Paul is Managing Principal and Founder of People and Culture Strategies, and he joins me now in Joydeep. It's a live issue as never before. It's been in the mix, admittedly, not just in the recent past, but it begs the question, are we going to look at a much less enjoyable workplace now if we can't have the kinds of conversations that ordinarily just take a break out from the monotony of the pressure? If the thought police are going to be there saying, what are you doing? What are you saying?
Absolutely. I think and always a very pertinent discussion to be having come Melbourne Cup time and
Yes.
Christmas party season as well.
Yeah.
It is a concern that employers who are probably feeling that they're demanding a lot of their employees, they want the workplace to be fun, they want it even to be inspiring for those employees, they want those employees to be enjoying themselves. The nature of relationships that people have at work do blur the boundaries between professional collegiality and friendships. But exactly what does that mean in terms of the pointy end, the consequences when an employee is going to turn around for whatever reason, whatever might be their motivation, impure or genuine, and criticise the culture that was fostered within that particular organisation.
So for any reason now, so you're saying there's no, it's completely catch-all-less. There's no middle ground to be struck. You have to go in and assume the worst at every turn as an HR manager.
I think that HR managers in particular will be very nervous when they see more cases that are being brought that are really scrutinising the minutiae of those interactions, because with the benefit of hindsight it looks a lot worse than what it is at the time that it's occurring. Because with the benefit of hindsight, that's when you've got lawyers, that's when you've got publicity, that's when you've got potentially significant dollar claims being levelled against you. At the time that it's occurring, it's just a few people having a bit of a laugh or a bit of a inappropriate conversation that doesn't really seem to be troubling too many people.
So it's also conversations that can count as untoward behaviour. It's not a physical thing.
Indeed.
Or at least a conversation that then the next step is something physical. It can be sufficient that it's just a line of inappropriate conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, with all of the attention around a sexual harassment case of late, employers in particular, and everyone for that matter, needs to take a step back and say, what's the definition of it? The starting point of the definition is it's unwelcome conduct. It's conduct of a sexual nature, and it's got to occur in circumstances where a reasonable person would have a level of sympathy for the person who's making the claim that they feel offended, humiliated or intimidated.
If you're sort of called down to the kitchen and champers is flowing at somebody's birthday and you're being welcomed into an environment of conviviality, does that not take you outside the work environment proper into a welcoming party atmosphere where the rules of the game are not identical to what they were down the corridor before you made that trip?
Yeah, and I guess what I'd say about that is two things. Firstly, the boundaries of the workplace are no longer defined by time and geography. And if you look at things like Facebook interactions between colleagues or the extent to which people socialise with their co-workers outside of work, that is very clear. The second point in relation...
Is that a clear, just before we move you on, is that a clear boundary? Just to clarify, you're saying that is a clear separation between work and play?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that it's quite the opposite.
Yes.
That there is no clear separation.
Yes.
Because people are not just saying, I will speak to you between the hours of 8:30 and 5:30, and then outside of those times I'll have no interactions with you.
Well, to that very end, are you telling management/employers, get off the Facebook friends list of your employees because you're asking for trouble? Get off it.
It's certainly what a lot of employers are saying, I just don't want to go there, and for understandable reasons. But there's got to be a pragmatic approach in relation to that as well, because if people want to Facebook each other or post things on each other's walls, they'll get an iPhone or latest smartphone and do that. But the second point in relation to this boundaries issue is that stuff, if I could call it that happens outside of work, comes back into the workplace very easily. People talk about what they did on weekends, they talk about movies that they've watched, and these become normal topics of conversation in a workplace. So even to the extent that they could be seen to be separated from the workplace at the time that these things have occurred, the moment it's brought back in, it's in the game.
When are you not at work? I know that sounds almost a trite question. You said earlier, not limited by time or geography anymore. But assuming that, two colleagues are invited out to a dinner at a neutral venue, are you still at work? in that context?
I think the question isn't so much, is that work or is it not work? The question, more appropriately, is behaviour that occurs in that context.
Well, that was where I was leading to. But I wanted to get past first base first before we even went to the behaviour aspect of it. But I mean, am I at work on a third party's territory then? Am I at work still? Yeah,
if you look at it from a workers' compensation point of view, maybe an occupational health and safety point of view, the answer is probably no. But in terms of these issues of harassment, bullying, potential other things under anti-discrimination legislation, is that conduct the workplace for the purposes of those?
Because the problem at that point, and everything you've said until now, is that a lot was contingent on the policeman or woman being on hand, i.e. the HR manager, having that listening ear, dipping in and out of conversations, and essentially being that proverbial fly on the wall everywhere, ubiquitous. But if they're not going along to that, that social invitation environment, suddenly the policeman ain't there, they're not on duty.
So the role of the policeman or woman in that case arises when someone might report back to them, I heard on the grapevine that this is what happened last Saturday night between two co-workers. And that's the point. Most management at this stage will say, no one's complained, neither of the individuals have raised it with me. I'll wait for that to happen.
So even what would be counted as hearsay in a court, you have an obligation to act on as an HR manager.
I think the lesson is there's a danger in turning a blind eye to it, because the risk that you face is that down the track someone will say that you were aware. We've got evidence that someone told you about the propensities or proclivities of a particular person who we are now suing.
And are we structuring, just briefly finally, are we resourcing and staffing our HR departments in light of these developments, in your view, from what you see, appropriately, or does more attention have to be given?
I think what really needs to happen is that senior management, the leadership within organisations need to be backing HR on these kinds of issues and walking the talk themselves.
Joydeep, intriguing, fascinating value coming on.
Thanks,
discuss further.
Always a pleasure.
Joydeep Hall there from People and Culture Strategies, of course, and that is a significant development for you to digest. We will return to Joydeep in the near course of future, as you know. Let's move on.